I'm regularly asked about deep buttoning, and deep buttoning is where you've got a diamond in the fabric with buttons on each corner, and then people are confused how to do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you from start to finish how to actually do it. It's not the easiest of jobs, and this particular one is even harder in the fact that it's in leather. And these ones have been done on boards, and they're for panels in a door, so I'm going to do 2 of these. And I'll show you the basic tools that you'll need as well. So what you're going to need to do this is you're going to need a yardstick, a pencil and a marker pen for marking out your board. This is a needle I use for putting the pleats in the fabric or the leather. Because I'm going onto a board, I can staple where the button's going to go first, rather than if I was doing a sofa or something, I would have to just button it. This time I can staple it. I've got a hole drill. I use that for the foam. I'll explain to you when I come to do the foam about that. And a pair of shears obviously for cutting off when you've finished. So starting off with the board. This board is going to go on the door like that, and then there's another one that goes above it. Now with the diamonds, I have a preference of 7" by 5". To me, aesthetically, that just looks nice, and that's the way I always try to do them. So obviously with a board like this, you're governed by the size of the board. So if the size of the diamond's not going to fit, then obviously the size of the diamond needs altering. So I've just worked something out quickly on here in pencil so that I could see, and it does actually work. The other thing with working these out is whether you actually start with a diamond in the middle or whether you start with a diamond either side. I always preferred it with one in the middle. So the easiest way to do this now is if you measure half the width of the board. Line up the centre. Then I know that these diamonds are going to be 5 inches. So if you do line 2.5 and 5, 2.5 and 5. So that's what we've got there, lines going up and down it. So now if I mark the centre, 13, then measure my diamond up and down, which is 7. So I've now got 2 fixed points. So that there, I know exactly is where my first 2 buttons are going to go. So from there you can measure up another 7, that gives you another one. Down here, another one. So because now that's the top and bottom of that diamond, you can just roughly mark out that, then you know that your other diamond's going to come across here, like that. So now if you go next but 1 across, measure the centre again, what you're going to have is a series of dots up these 2 lines. Come across to this other one here, and this will all make sense in a minute. So what I've got now, I've got a centre line, 5 inches apart, these lines. So now if I join these dots together, you can see there where the diamonds start to work out. So what I need to do now is everywhere these are, I need to drill a hole in these. So I'll do that now. I'll go and drill these holes and then I can show you what to do next. I've chose a drill for putting in these holes here big enough for my needle to go through. So when I'm going to button this, there's 2 different buttons I could have used on this. I could have used one with a prong on it, which is a metal prong and opens out at the back. But because these are going to go flush against the door, it's going to be too bulky on the back. So I'm going to put these on with twine, so the button's going to have a loop on it. So this drill's big enough for me to pull my needle through and the loop of the button to go through the hole as well. So all I'm going to do is drill now in every corner of these triangles. On the back of the board, because this board is actually going to be fitted to a door and it needs to be as flush as possible, and I'm going to have the bulk of the leather on there, but I don't want things like this on here. It's where the drill's gone through. Because it's MDF, it doesn't drill through cleanly like wood. So all I'm doing is just going over it with this foam. Foam I'm using for deep buttoning is 2 inch. I always tend to go for 2 inch, it's preferable. I wouldn't go for anything less. I mean, I've seen people do it with 1 inch, but you don't get the pleats the same and the depth of the buttons. So I've gone for 2 inch. Also, you don't want a foam that's too soft, because when you try to create your pleats and pull your buttons in, all it does is squash the foam and not give you a nice shape. So I've gone for a 2 inch, fairly firm density. So what I'm going to do with this now is, I've got the board, just going to hold the board up there, and this is just a spray glue. I'm just going to glue the foam to the board. Right, so now that's stuck to there. This needs trimming off. Now at home, you would probably do this with a bread knife, is probably your easiest option. You just use a bread knife and cut carefully down the sides. I've got a big machine for doing this, so I'll show you how I do it on this. The other thing is as well, I'm going to cut now with the machine right along the edge of this wood. I would never normally do that. I would normally allow a little bit of foam Now the reason I normally allow a bit of foam is when I upholster it, the foam rolls over the edge of the wood, so you don't get a sharp edge of the wood. But in this case, because it's going in a recess in a door, I'm going to cut this flush with the wood. So this is the machine I'm going to use. It's a band knife, and what it's got is it's got this thing. It's a blade, and it's got a sharp edge on one side, like a Stanley blade on one side. This blade itself's 14 foot long. So that's 14 foot long, and it runs around a pulley or several pulleys. So I'll show you how I cut this now. I'm going to, like I say, I'm going to cut along the edge of the wood. Right, board's glued, cut to the foam, so that's all on now. You may be wondering now how those diamonds on that side translate to the foam on this side. And I'm not going to mark them out, but what I need is a hole enough to allow all the bulk of the leather to go into the hole. Otherwise, you're not going to get the pleats in it and you're not going to get the button in it. So, I'll show you what to do. This is that needle I had before. I use that end. I use that end for doing the pleats on the leather or the fabric when I'm buttoning. And that end there, which is snapped off, is ideal for this job here. I'll show you what I do. So, got holes on the back on the board. And I poke my needle through. That's it. Simple as that. Like that. And I'll show you what happens on the other side. So as I poke my needle through, it creates that. As long as you push the needle through straight, then you're fine. If you start putting it through at an angle, then you're going to end up with lopsided diamonds. So just right, so that's all those through there.